I'm going to start by reciting some prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, devotees, here we go. Thank you for making it on time. That is appreciated. And we are just essentially continuing on today from where we left off yesterday. And, I even mentioned a little, usually when I do a seminar, the first day we start slowly and then we speed up. So yesterday we started slowly, and today we will speed up to some degree. And the last thing we were discussing was the apparent contradiction where Srila Prabhupada, commenting on Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 15, verse 108, Srila Prabhupada makes this very strong statement that if you're not initiated, you're not connected with Krishna consciousness. But I did make the point, and any of you who want to check, you can, and I suggest you do actually, check what the actual verse itself says. Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 15, verse 108. And it says almost, it's kind of like the polar opposite, or something like that, to what that verse says from Vishnu Yamala, and also the comment of Prabhupada from the introduction to Nectar of Devotion. That verse, Madhya Lila 15:108, Lord Chaitanya, as I recall, is speaking, and he says, you don't even need initiation, and you don't need to go through the preparatory processes leading up to it. Just chant Hare Krishna. So where is the truth? Well, the truth, in a sense, they're both true. Prabhupada explains in the purport of that verse, Madhya Lila, chapter 15, verse 108. If you read through the whole thing, you'll see towards the end, Prabhupada quotes a section. It's like about maybe 4 or 5 or 6 lines or something from Bhakti Sandarbha. And he translates that, and Prabhupada says there that, you can have a look. I advise you to have a look. Hopefully you've got access to Prabhupada's books, the Veda base. It is available free.
Recording in progress.
Oh, okay. And I'm videoing at the same time. So Prabhupada says there towards the end that of the purport, Madhya Lila 15:108, Prabhupada says that yes, or not actually, he's just translating Jiva Goswami Bhakti Sandarbha, that if you can chant up to the standard, then just chant. That's all you need to do. Like pure chanting, Shuddhanam, But then he says basically, in Kali Yuga, who can do that? And Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada presents, Jiva Goswami says that in Kali Yuga, people are too contaminated. Therefore, particularly they need to do deity worship. And in order to do deity worship, you have to be initiated. Otherwise, you may do some deity worship without initiation, but it's not very serious at all. It's definitely not proper, like good devotional service. So therefore initiation, even though Lord Caitanya says no need to be initiated, but under our circumstances, you definitely need to be initiated. And then the idea that if you're not initiated, you are just, you could say you're not a devotee, you're not Krishna conscious. Well, in the light of these other points, and I mentioned yesterday, the thing is that these very strong statements about not being initiated and what's wrong with not being initiated, we can take them as like warnings. That's one thing. And another thing is, even when you're not initiated, within ISKCON, you are serving under Srila Prabhupada as Siksha Guru. So in other words, you are connected to the line. Yeah, you are part of Krishna consciousness under Prabhupada. But when you become initiated, then it's really solidified, strengthened, and it's more serious. Okay, so we are going on right now, devotees, to page 14, and this is now a discussion about the whole system of Guru Parampara, disciplic succession, and you can see the pictures there at the top of the page. On our right is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Then the next one to our left is Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who was, in fact, there's one quotation we'll see in a few minutes. Prabhupada makes the point that Gaurkishore was not initiated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although, he is a standard person in our Guru Parampara, as you see on every single altar in ISKCON. So what does that mean? It means he was a Siksha disciple of Bhaktivinoda, although he received initiation as such from someone else, and frankly, I don't even know who that was, but someone who was obviously not of great importance, although, was giving initiation to some people, but Bhaktivinoda was extremely important. So Gaurkishore then, and then next one to the left is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who was initiated by Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and also took instruction from him. And then, of course, on our left is our Srila Prabhupada, who was initiated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. That's those are the recent links in our disciplic succession, one after the other. So then you see there's a little box which says, why do we have to accept living Diksha Gurus? What we'll go through now, just after that, I think will throw some light on that. So, like I said, we have to move a little more quickly, or even, definitely more quickly today. So I'm not going to get into so much detail about all these different verses which are quoted and the different points there. I mean, I'll definitely be at least touching on those which I feel are of considerable importance. So just beneath that little box, towards the bottom of page 14, the Parampara system. And Srila Prabhupada, you'll see in the third line there, he quotes just a few words from Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 verse 2, Evam Parampara Praptam. This is, well, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 verse 1, Lord Krishna explains that first of all I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, or to the sun god, and then he passed it on to his son, who passed it on to Manu. That's chapter 4 verse 1. And then chapter 4 verse 2, Lord Krishna himself says, in this way it was handed down through parampara. Parampara, as a Sanskrit word, it essentially just means a line, one after the other. We translate as disciplic succession. So the spiritual master gives Krishna consciousness to the disciple. In due course, the disciple becomes qualified to become spiritual master, and then gives Krishna consciousness to his disciples, and in due course that disciple becomes qualified enough and gives Krishna consciousness to their disciples. In this way, there's an unbroken line, at least since anyway, I mean, in our branch, there are different branches of the line. In our branch, it is not broken at the time. Krishna says in chapter 4 verse 2, in course of time the succession was broken. That was one branch of the line. But in our branch, it was not broken. So it went from Krishna to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada Muni, from Narada Muni to Madhvacharya, from Madhvacharya, anyway, it goes on and it comes down to Srila Prabhupada. So that's the way it works, one by one through the years. But the next quote there, you see, last one, bottom of page 14, that it comes down and one should approach the current link. In other words, living spiritual master in the chain. And, the question wasn't it, just above the little box just up towards the top of page 14, why do we have to accept living Diksha Gurus? So one of the points, I mean, there's a few points, but this is one point, and this is important, is that it really helps to have a person who knows who you are and what you are and can instruct you. I mean, of course, in the general sense, like, you must chant Hare Krishna. So that instruction's for everyone. We must serve Krishna. We must follow the regulative principles. These are general instructions for everyone, every devotee. But for you, every individual has their nature and certain abilities, certain weaknesses even. So the idea of having a living spiritual master who knows you, who you are, what you are, and what you're not, and at least is able to have contact with you on a somewhat regular basis. It doesn't have to be every day or every hour or something, or even every week, but from time to time to check you out, evaluate, and see how you're doing and how you could be doing better. So this helps. It really helps. And this is one reason why it's really essential to have a living spiritual master. Although, the previous acharyas are there for yourselves, Prabhupada's there, and, relevant in so many ways, but not quite the same as having someone overseeing you personally. So, okay, now let's get into it here. Page 15, the Parampara, Prabhupada's emphasizing that he says here, you see in the middle of the quote there, "You cannot imagine what my spiritual master said, even if you read some books. You can't understand unless you understand it from me. So you cannot jump over to the superior guru, neglecting the current one, your personal guru." And the next quote, don't try to approach Krishna directly, jump over, that's useless. Well, that's the same point. And the next one must accept a Vaishnava guru, not simply read books. I mean, it's more or less the same point. You don't just, it's not a do-it-yourself process. Go to CNA, buy the books, and then away you go. And that's, as good as having an actual teacher. So then, in terms of parampara, the succession, one after the other, the next thing Prabhupada talks about, and it's actually the next, I think, what is it? It's the next 3 quotations. Prabhupada's making the point in each one that all of my disciples, that they're being trained to become future spiritual masters. That's what Prabhupada is saying effectively in each of those 3 quotations there, you see. And then right at the bottom, is it? Yeah, right at the bottom of page 15, the more you become in the lower position, the more you're advanced. I mean, it's just an interesting point about being humble. This is parampara system. You have to learn how to become servant of Krishna. The more you become in the lower position, servant, hundreds times servant, then more you're advanced. In material life, of course, to be a servant is not good. It's just, sort of like humiliating, you could say. But in Krishna consciousness, the more you're servant of the servant, the servant of that servant, then of the servant of that servant, and then of the servant of that servant, the better your position is. Okay, let's see, where are we? Yeah, okay, page 15. All right, now, on page 16, this is a change of subject, really, and it's sort of a bit of a specialized point, is that you may encounter, it's not as common now as it used to be, and even now it's really, except for parts of India, it's pretty uncommon, is there's a group of devotees. They were practicing, generally they were practicing within ISKCON for some time. But then Prabhupada left this world, and some of Prabhupada's disciples became spiritual masters and started giving initiation. And, even I am one of them. But then what happened was that there were cases, unfortunately, of some of those disciples, the initial group who became gurus like immediately after Prabhupada left this world, say like early 1978. Prabhupada passed away November 77. So some of them got into difficulty and got distracted from proper Krishna consciousness. Not all, but some. So as a result, some of the devotees became frustrated with the idea that I should accept, or, everyone who's not a disciple of Prabhupada should accept a disciple of Prabhupada as guru. They became frustrated with that idea, and they came up with the idea that you can still be initiated by Prabhupada, even though he has passed away. I would say it was like 79, maybe 80, 81, something like that, I forget exactly, that, some of these people became frustrated and started advocating that you can be initiated by Prabhupada, even though he has left this world. So here you see, in the box there is a number of arguments to establish that you cannot do that. After the disappearance of a spiritual master, that spiritual master does not continue to give initiation, giving instructions like Prabhupada. Look at all his books and lectures and so on. There's a massive, massive amount of siksha. So therefore we refer one way, there are a couple of ways of referring to Prabhupada. One is that he's the founder Acharya, which we'll talk about shortly. But another is that he is the supreme Siksha Guru of everyone in ISKCON. You may have a Siksha Guru or two. You can have quite a number if you really want. But however many there are, Prabhupada is the supreme Siksha Guru. So anyway, there are these points. How many? There's 8 points. I won't go through all of them, but look at the first one. It's just such a powerful point. There is no example of anyone taking diksha from, Param Guru means the previous spiritual master who has left this world. That's generally the Param Guru. So there's no example of anyone taking diksha, at least, from a spiritual master who has passed away. It doesn't exist in any of, not just in Lord Chaitanya's line, like including the Gaudiya Math, including the Babajis, but in any of the sampradayas. Yeah, there are 4 sampradayas. We're in one, the Brahma Sampradaya. And second point, there's no shastric evidence indicating that someone can do that. And interesting point, the argument that there are this is the 4th one, the argument that there are no qualified Diksha Gurus amongst Prabhupada's disciples indicates that Prabhupada's teachings, or you could just say that Prabhupada was not effective. He couldn't make anyone qualified enough to become a guru. So what's the use then of taking initiation through, because someone performs the ceremony, he's called a Ritvik priest. Actually, Ritvik just means priest. So if you say Ritvik priest, what you're saying literally is priest. Yeah. Like sometimes we talk about kalpa vriksha trees. Kalpa vriksha. Kalpa means wish fulfilling. Vriksha means tree. So kalpa vriksha tree means wish fulfilling tree. Okay. So anyway, you can see there are these other points here. And those two I read, or the three I read, as far as I'm concerned, they're sort of enough, really. It's just not done. It's never been done. And that's the end of the story. There's a possible example which might confuse some. That is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was initiated in the normal way by Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, but then Gaurkishore passed away, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to take sannyas. And you have to take sannyas from a guru. And he did. He took sannyas from a photo of Gaurkishore. But the thing is this, don't become confused about this. There's no need at all. The thing is, the sannyas guru is not a guru. He may be a regular guru, like I was given sannyas by Giriraj Maharaj, who's an initiating guru to this day in ISKCON, and he gave me sannyas. But in being my sannyas guru, he is not a guru in the Diksha guru sense, first and second initiation. The sannyas guru is simply a witness, just to make it official before Krishna, that yes, I am observing, I'm seeing this person is taking sannyas, and I'm sort of certifying that this person is now a sannyasi. So therefore, the sannyas guru is generally or often described as simply being a witness, which is definitely not what the first and second the Diksha guru in the regular sense is. All right, so now we go on to page 17, which is titled Additional Quotes on Guru Tattva. Now, in other words, they're just in addition to what we were reading yesterday about Guru Tattva. If you remember, the first one or I think there were two quotes actually, how the spiritual master should be respected like God. You hopefully you remember that. So this is really, it's just another quote making the same point. It's an additional quote. That's what the section's called. But we'll just run through quickly. So the next one, the guru is an associate of Radharani and representative or representation of Nityananda Prabhu. Yeah, that's there. Both Nityananda Prabhu and Srimati Radharani are considered the original gurus. Because in the case of Radharani, she is the closest person to Krishna. In fact, she is part of Krishna, his pleasure potency. So therefore, she knows Krishna better than anyone. And therefore, she is the best person to tell you about Krishna. So she's the original guru in that sense. And Nityananda Prabhu is the closest person to Lord Caitanya. He knows Lord Caitanya better than anyone. So therefore, he's the ideal guru in relation to Lord Caitanya. I mean, it's an interesting subject. Quite a bit more could be said, but, that I think is sufficient for the time being. So in the next one, spiritual master, external manifestation of Chaita Guru. Well, we mentioned, I imagine you remember, that this is another type of guru. This manual we have, it says there too, but actually there are more. And another one is Chaita Guru. That's Krishna. And of course, Krishna is the supreme spiritual master. And our guru, our initiating guru or Siksha Guru, is a external, like visible manifestation of the Chaita Guru, Krishna within the heart, who is generally not visible to us. Then, well, we already looked at one or a couple of, or even three, or anyway, a couple of quotes that if you follow a pure devotee, you're also a pure devotee. And this is the same point. You may not be expert, like an expert technologist or mechanic or something, but if you perform the activity under that person's instruction and you completely do it properly according to the instruction, then Prabhupada says here, you're also expert. Maybe not 100%, but your work is expert. So hopefully that point is clear enough. And on to 18. So there are not many, in other words, they are not many. There are not many gurus. There's one guru. This is an interesting point, because the essence of being a guru is giving instructions, giving guidance. That's the essence. And giving guidance, what does that mean? It means, like Lord Caitanya says, chant Hare Krishna. And the guru says, chant Hare Krishna. And all the gurus, all the bona fide gurus, like every guru in ISKCON without exception, will tell you, chant Hare Krishna. So in that sense, there are not many gurus, but there's one guru, Guru Tattva. Tattva meaning like a category, like Vishnu Tattva. I assume you've come across that term before. It means all the expansions of Krishna, Narayan, Nrsingadev, Vamana, Varaha, and you name them, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu, they're all expansions of Krishna. They're all one category, Vishnu Tattva, although each is an individual, obviously. Right. So same with gurus. With bona fide gurus, it's not like there are many. It's one, Guru Tattva, a category of entity which is called guru. Then next one is, well, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. So Prabhupada says 2 kinds of instructing gurus. This again is from the first chapter of Adi Leela Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's a whole lot of interesting information there about gurus. And yesterday we read a number of quotes from there. So 2 kinds. So one is more advanced. The liberated person fully absorbed in meditation and devotional service means, very exalted devotee, like Prabhupada. And the other is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. That means the type of person we were just talking about 2 minutes ago, because they're working under the fully qualified expert and doing exactly what the fully qualified expert tells them to do, so they can be considered expert, even though in a certain sense they may not be absolutely expert in all respects. Yeah. So, okay. So now next one, Diksha purifies one's previous sinful reactions. Yes. So, well, this is important. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders, or it may be a devotee may fully surrender before initiation, it's possible. But at least when the devotee fully surrenders, which in a sort of ceremonial sense should at least be the time of initiation, then the devotee becomes purified, and Krishna accepts the devotee to be as good as himself or as pure as himself. Right. So then let's see. Diksha and Siksha Guru. Well, there, look, you see, there's that verse. Lord Caitanya speaking to Satyaraj Khan, the second of the two quotes. Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 15, verse 108. That's the verse. That's the verse that we were referring to at the end of the class yesterday and initially this morning. So then, the spiritual master accepts the sinful activities, the reactions. Normally, Krishna takes them. And so the spiritual master doesn't have to suffer all of them, because it would truly be devastating, particularly if there's hundreds or thousands of disciples. So mainly Krishna takes them, but the spiritual master does also. Then 18, and here's another one, could be a little confusing. Second initiation is real initiation. First initiation is preliminary, just to make you prepared. Yes, and, elsewhere Prabhupada did say first initiation is more important. But definitely second initiation, in a sense, is more important because you've got to be more advanced to get it. You get first initiation, and, it's quite rare, although it happens occasionally. Someone like Prabhupada got first and second at the same time. But it's very rare. It is, I don't think it's 1 in 100. I don't think it's 1 in 100. It's rare. So people in practically every case, they're just given first initiation, that's it for the time being. And then they're checked for some period of time, and then later, okay, now you can get second initiation. So in that sense, that you have to be more advanced to get second, in that sense, second's more important because you got to be more advanced. And when you get first, you're just not going to get second because you're not ready enough. But Prabhupada makes the point here that the connection with between the disciple and spiritual master begins from the first day one hears. And Prabhupada gives his own example. when he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta first, 1922, then Prabhupada says, the relationship began from that day. Okay, so now on to, where are we? Page 19. Yes, we got to keep going here. So yeah, anyway, well, these are additional points now about parampara. And actually, we already discussed this about half an hour ago. First of all, you don't jump over. You approach Krishna through the living guru, at least specifically for initiation. For instructions, Prabhupada is the supreme Siksha guru. Yeah. So, and Prabhupada quotes a line from a verse in the 11th canto. It's Krishna speaking to Uddhava, Mad Bhakta Pujabyadika, which he translates as, first of all, become devotee of my devotee. Jiva Goswami gives a translation of this line. It's very interesting. He says that serving the devotee is a more effective way of developing love for Krishna than trying to develop love for Krishna. Anyway, think about that. And then, of course, Prabhupada mentions Lord Caitanya, Dasa Das Anudas. And an interesting little point, it's a little bit of a play on words, but Dasa Das Adas, right? 3 times Das. Then Anudas. Anu means following. We are Rup Anugas. But Anu also means tiny, like an atom. So Dasa Das, Adas, Anudas can mean the very small servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Okay, now bona fide spiritual master points out the foolishness. Well, yes. If you get chastised by your spiritual master, then take it as mercy. Don't get angry. Don't get disturbed. Take it that my spiritual master felt that I needed to learn this, and if I didn't, it would not be good for me to not learn it. Then this point I made already, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not official or initiating guru of Gaurkishore Das Babaji. And I don't know if you're aware, but Gaurkishore Das Babaji became the sannyas guru of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Yeah, he gave him sannyas. Because sannyas guru is essentially a witness. He just confirms, okay, this person is now a sannyasi. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was like Siksha guru of Gaurkishore Das Babaji. And yeah, so disciplic succession doesn't mean one has to be directly a disciple or initiated disciple. It can just be through Siksha, which was the case from Bhaktivinoda Thakur to Gaurkishore. Just Siksha, that's all. And the guru is one because he comes in disciplic succession. I actually want to read something to you. Where is it? Yeah, from one of the first, except for the class I heard from Prabhupada in the university before I was a devotee at all. This is an extract from what was otherwise, as I recall, the first class I heard from Prabhupada. So Prabhupada makes the point, this is August 22nd, 1973 in London. Prabhupada says, the Vedic instruction is tad vigyanartam sagurum eva bigachet. Gurum eva, one must. Eva means must. Abhigachet, this verb is used when there's the sense of must. It never says go to a guru, but he says must approach the guru. Guru is one. Guru cannot be two. Gurum eva bigachet. And we see also practically in the disciplic succession of guru, the same thing is spoken by the guru. Same thing. Repetition of the same subject matter. No other. So, like I mentioned, a very classic example, the guru, say Lord Caitanya or Prabhupada says, chant Hare Krishna. The current guru says, chant Hare Krishna. The current guru does not say that, no, well, look, don't chant Hare Krishna, just do something else, will be better for you. I hope you get the idea there. That's an important point. So that's page 19. Let's go on to lesson 3, Prabhupada, ISKCON founder Acharya. This is page 20. So there's just a couple of points on this page here. I mean, there is a book on the subject of Prabhupada as the founder Acharya. It's not a big book, but it's a book. I think it's about 60 pages or something. So, I would advise all of you to get a copy. Even I could probably supply an electronic copy if you want, and read it, because it really goes in depth into what does it mean that Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya. So anyway, some points are given here that, there's from the Oxford Dictionary. What does it mean if someone found something? To give a basis or firm support to give some like ground, like foundation of instructions, to set up or establish for the first time with an institution, but not just to establish, but with provision for its ongoing existence. So that's there. I mean, in an extremely small nutshell, that's what Prabhupada being founder Acharya means. But I'll just mention one other point specifically about Prabhupada being founder Acharya. Means that all the instructions he gave now become the foundational instructions for the whole of ISKCON for just forever. Whereas others, other gurus, at least in certain respects, from one guru to the next, there may be some variation in instructions, in detail, just in certain details. Like before Prabhupada, in the institution of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, they didn't do much book distribution. They did a bit, but it was not a big thing. Harinam Sankirtan was much bigger. And when I joined devotees, Harinam was the thing. We went out every day for 6 to 8 hours chanting. And we'd distribute a few back to Godheads. But then about 6 months or 8 months or some later that year, 1973, Prabhupada gave an instruction that book distribution is more important than Harinam. So the whole movement changed. And now, us in London, we would only go out on Saturday nights on Harinam. Otherwise, everyone who used to go on Harinam every day was like 30 devotees at least. We were all out distributing books every single day, Monday to Saturday. So this was not done before. This large-scale book distribution was not done even by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So it's a little modification of detail by Prabhupada. But into the future, what does it mean? Book distribution is going to be, a foundational activity of ISKCON, just going into the future, way off into the future. Right. So at the bottom of page 20, Prabhupada has a unique relationship with every ISKCON devotee as the preeminent teacher and ultimate authority within ISKCON. And he has a relationship with every ISKCON devotee. And that's why, very recently, 10 days ago, right? Yeah. Kadambakananda Maharaj left this world. And, I was down in Cape Town. And, we had to try to help, encourage Maharaj's disciples there, who, some of them were really, really devastated, actually. But one of the main things we emphasized is that Prabhupada's there. He's always been there, he's still there, and he will be there. And we all have a relationship with him. So try and go deeper into that. So then, on to page 21. Prabhupada is the empowered representative of Lord Caitanya. And there's a quote there, Mora Senapati Bhakta. Lord Chaitanya is speaking in Chaitanya Mangala that, I'm going to spread the chanting, but in the future, my Senapati Bhakta, Senapati is like a military term. It's sort of like general or field marshal, if you know what those mean in armies. Means the top officers in the army. Yeah, is a Senapati. So Lord Chaitanya is saying that one of my great general devotees is going to come in the future, and we take that to be Srila Prabhupada. I mean, you can say it's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you can say it's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, no problem. But actually, with the greatest of respect to these devotees, Srila Prabhupada really did many, many times more what they did, even though what they did was just absolutely glorious and wonderful and shouldn't be minimized. So then, bottom of page 21, what are we going to do in the future in regards to Srila Prabhupada being founder Acharya and preeminent Siksha Guru? Well, we are going to have to keep, promoting the idea. I mean, you got to think, they want you to think about it. But the bottom line is, we don't want people to forget. It's so easy to forget and think, my guru has saved me. My guru has helped me and is helping me so much, and kind of forget about Prabhupada, or, not emphasize him as much as you might or might have done. So we need to remind ourselves. Yes. Okay, on to page 22. Now, into the current era, ISKCON gurus. What should be the attitude of an ISKCON guru? Well, you see there are three sort of subheadings there. Attitude of an ISKCON guru, gurus and ISKCON authorities' instructions, and what about gurus who are not in ISKCON? These are all important subjects. So what's the appropriate attitude in general for an ISKCON guru, current and future, in regard to the teachings of Prabhupada and in regard to the authority structure within ISKCON? Well, in regard to the teachings of Prabhupada, if we just go back to the last quote at the bottom of the previous page 21, and just see what Prabhupada says. Thank you for appreciating my books and so on, and for my speaking. But Prabhupada says, these are not my words. I'm simply bearing the message from Lord Caitanya through disciplic succession. I'm not adding, I'm not subtracting. Similarly, if you all carry these words, then the parampara, basically what he's saying, the parampara will continue. Well, he says, then the transcendental parampara system will be exactly maintained. So therefore, the attitude of an ISKCON guru today, March the 19th, 2023, the first part is, I am just a servant of Srila Prabhupada, and as his servant, my first duty is to give to the members of ISKCON the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, which includes making it clear they are the teachings of Prabhupada and not my teachings. You get the idea? Yeah. And then, the second point, and this is a bit more subtle, but it's very important. What should be the attitude of an ISKCON guru towards the authority structure in ISKCON? Means, first of all, the GBCs, then, there may be regional secretaries possibly, then temple presidents. There's so many temple presidents or yatra leaders, and there's sannyasis, and there's other gurus, and so on and so forth. So what should a guru's attitude be towards them? Should it be that, well, I'm guru, and I'm the top authority, and therefore I am just going to tell people what to do, and that's it, because I'm a guru. So now, if we go over the page to 23, look at this little diagram. It's an attempt. It is not completely, accurate, but as far as it goes, it's accurate, actually. From Srila Prabhupada, or you could even say from Krishna, to Srila Prabhupada, to the GBC body, from the GBC body to the sannyas ministry, who are supervising the sannyasis, then to the Guru Services Committee, who is, sort of, not exactly, but, the sannyas ministry, they do actually oversee the sannyasis to quite some degree. The Guru Services Committee, they sort of do, and they will do as time goes on. But then, from the GBC body to regional bodies like the National Council of South Africa, for example, or different places, then you see arrows going from the GBC body, not just to the Sannyas Ministry and the Guru Services Committee and regional body, but directly to the sannyasis and to the gurus. And there's also communication from the regional bodies to sannyasis and to gurus. And the regional body can tell a sannyasi, you can't come if there's some unsuitable circumstances. The regional body has that authority. Now, one little error, there should be an arrow from the regional body to the temple president. There should be. I mean, there's arrows from sannyasis, from gurus to the temple president. But not from the regional body. There should be, because normally, I mean, not just normally, but just every case, the temple president is working under the supervision of the regional body, sometimes directly under the GBC member. Now, between GBC body and regional body, there should be the GBC members. Oh, Krishna. Because regional bodies are not supervised by the GBC body. They just aren't. Regional bodies are supervised by their local GBC members. Anyway, I mean, you could add these little things in because, really it's true. It's just really true. Yeah, so there you go. And the regional body, in many cases, will not deal, or may deal, but may not, with the Namahata coordinator. The temple president, normally the Namahatas will be under a temple president more than the regional body. But anyway, it's useful, particularly if you make a couple of little modifications, as I suggested. And they do make the point underneath the diagram, it's just, it's not absolutely authoritative, but it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely better than nothing, for sure. So, okay, now, how about the gurus and the ISKCON authorities' instructions? This is important. It has happened in the past. It doesn't really happen now. I mean, in my experience, it hardly happens now. But it used to happen a lot in the past. You had these sort of big gurus who had lots of disciples, and they would just come to a temple and just tell their disciples, do this, don't do that. Whereas actually that is the service of the yatra authorities. The guru is to give spiritual instruction. The guru, being a guru, is not a managerial position. It's a spiritual position. Please make a note of that. Gurus do not have the right to manage their disciples, particularly in the sense of telling them to do this service and not do that service. That is the business of the yatra authorities. And if the guru happens to be a yatra authority, like, if you don't mind me saying, me, I'm also a GBC, so there is scope for me to give instructions about, who should do what and who shouldn't do what. But I have to be very careful. It's only in a managerial sense, and it has to be done in cooperation with the local ISKCON authorities. yeah, even, some devotees going back to the very late 70s or very early 80s, where the movement was very temple-based and not congregationally based hardly at all. The temple president is engaging the devotees. Okay, you're a pujari, you're a cook, you go out and distribute books, you clean the temple, all these things. But the guru would come in sometimes and tell the disciples, no, don't do that. Go to another temple, go somewhere else. And, it happened that some temples suddenly found they'd lost 10 of their devotees who were performing essential services. And, so what it's called is parallel lines of authority. There should not be parallel lines. Two people instructing one person on what to do. Practical activity. There should be the management telling the devotees what to do practically, and the gurus explaining how to be devotees, how to progress, how to improve your chanting, how to become a better devotee, how to become free from material attachments, and all that sort of thing. I hope you get that. Right, now, next little section, we're on page 24, down towards the bottom, gurus outside of ISKCON. This is another very important point, because sometimes, in some places, the Gaudiya Math are present, or some other, like some Babajis are present. It happens. And, they chant Hare Krishna, and they study Bhagavad Gita, so they sort of, arguably, they look like ISKCON. And they have gurus, and devotees want to be initiated, and they may think that, well, I think I'll be initiated by this person, for example, from the Gaudiya Math. It happens. It really doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened, and sometimes it happens. So the thing is, this, that Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. He has established the basis of what is ISKCON, how will ISKCON function, how will ISKCON be managed, these types of things. Prabhupada has given all of that because he's founder Acharya. He was not just another guru who came along and started preaching, but he established the institution with all of its different aspects and elements and different functions. So, and the way Prabhupada practiced Krishna consciousness, the way he presented Krishna consciousness, what he instructed his disciples to do in Krishna consciousness, in certain important respects, was quite different from people from the Gaudiya Math, for example. And what to speak of the Babajis, oh my Lord, just very, very different. Although they are all followers of Lord Caitanya in their particular ways. So I did mention, in regard to preaching, how Prabhupada emphasized book distribution. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, they did some, but he didn't emphasize it at all the way Prabhupada did. That Prabhupada not exactly stopped Harinam, but he really restricted Harinam and gave very special emphasis to distributing books. And that's part of ISKCON, and it will be for hundreds of years, because Prabhupada's the founder Acharya. And his, like, these fundamental instructions, they are now foundational to what is ISKCON. Here's another one, and this is really super important. 16 rounds. The Gaudiya Math, the Babajis, they don't teach 16 rounds. I mean, I have on occasion visited Gaudiya Math temples. I mean, on occasion, like really a handful of occasions. And many, many years ago, like 20 years ago or more. And being there for Mongol Arati, we were in Puri. I think it was 79. It was 79. We were staying in a hotel. Up the road was a Gaudiya Math temple. Yeah. Established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So we went there early in the morning for Mongol Arati, because at that time there was no ISKCON temple in Puri. So, okay, Mongol Arati, they don't sing Gurvastikam, they just have some kirtan. You know, that's up to them. But Prabhupada established in ISKCON, Mongol Arati, we sing Gurvastikam, Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. So anyway, there was some kirtan, we were there. Tulsi Puja, just like in ISKCON temples, it was there. Then that part of the program finished, and now so we all sat down to chant japa. We were the only ones. Everyone else went off. Some went and did a bhajan program, and others were just doing this service and that. We were the only ones chanting japa. And we asked them about chanting japa. You know, we chant 16 rounds. How many do you chant? And they said, well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said to chant at least 4. That is not unusual in many Gaudiya Math temples. Yeah. So, therefore, it's very important. I mean, it's not just very important, it's essential to stick with Prabhupada and Prabhupada's movement, because Prabhupada is the expert on how to present Krishna consciousness and how to practice Krishna consciousness now. And no others, I mean, from other organizations, no others know, and therefore no others are successful like ISKCON is successful, because Prabhupada geared things in certain specific ways. Here's another one, which is mentioned here. You see the second one on this page. What is it again? 25. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's governing body. The point, this is from Caitanya Charitamrita, you can see. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, after his departure, wanted a governing body, and not that someone becomes the next head of the whole institution, the next acharya. But as Prabhupada says here, just after his passing away, some of his leading men, with no authority, made some arrangement for someone to become the acharya, the head, and the only guru, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had been. And in this way, there was a split. And at the time Prabhupada presented Caitanya Charitamrita, which was like 74, 75, that split was still there. Yeah, and in fact, the Gaudiya Math had disintegrated into, I don't know how many, but maybe about 20 small institutions each with their own head. So Prabhupada insisted that we have a governing body, and we have. So, these are all things coming from Prabhupada. And he's our founder, Acharya. So we do them. And others in other organizations and other devotee groups, they don't do, many other things also. And they don't do these things I've mentioned, and many other things they don't do. So therefore, we do not take initiation from their gurus. Now here, just at the bottom of page 25, there's some quotes from Prabhupada on this exact point. See the first one. Never try to hear someone who's not in our line. Our line means ISKCON line. Better you should stick to hearing from authorized persons like your spiritual master or experienced godbrothers, but never try to hear someone who's not in our line. It is simply a waste of time to hear and then again have to rectify the mistake. Next one. I've now issued orders that all my disciples should avoid all my godbrothers. They should not have any dealings with them, nor even correspondence. Nor should they give them any of my books, or should they purchase any of their books. Shoo, that's pretty strong, isn't it? And when they come to visit, because they do sometimes, give them prasadam, respect them as senior Vaishnavas, but don't let them speak or lecture. And I'm going to just read very briefly a quote, a letter from Srila Prabhupada, or a quote from it, which is very, on this point. Here we go, just a sec. Okay. Prabhupada, this is a letter to Guru Das, 29th August 1972, if you want to look it up. 29th August 1972. Do not be depressed. All along, my godbrothers gave me only depression, repression, compression, but I continued strong in my duty. So never mind there's some discouragement. Continue with your work in full enthusiastic Krishna consciousness attitude of service. Okay. Yeah, because they gave Prabhupada a hard time. Prabhupada, they criticized Prabhupada a lot. Oh gosh. And they tried to steal disciples away, like the Bon Maharaj mentioned in the last letter, page 25. All right. Anyway, we go over to page 26, and there's some more additional quotes about ISKCON gurus. I'll touch on them. GBC is the ultimate managing authority. We should accept them like that. The Gaudiya mission, or Gaudiya Mat, it means, failed in preaching work. They were happy enough. Prabhupada says, as soon as someone, like a bit of a leader in the group, got a little shelter, like a temple, and a few dozen, not even a few dozen, but 12 disciples, then he settled up there. Now he would sit down, chant Hare Krishna, and show that he's a great chanter. But where is your preaching? Therefore, my Guru Maharaj condemned this policy. Yeah. So, they failed because they didn't, for a number of reasons. They didn't chant enough. They didn't preach enough. And they tried to, appoint one single leader, Acharya, as head of the organization. That was such a disastrous failure, my God. Yeah, so anyway, Prabhupada ordered us to follow the GBC, and we, of course, as disciples, we have to follow Prabhupada's instructions. And not only follow Prabhupada, but follow his GBC. And then you see at the bottom of 26, going over like the first half of 27, I won't read the whole thing. You can read through it later. Prabhupada is trying to preach to some disciples who left ISKCON because they don't want to work with the GBC. And they say that we'll follow you, Prabhupada, but we will not follow the GBC. And so Prabhupada, I'll just read the last paragraph there, that, they're saying that we'll follow you, but not the GBC. Prabhupada says, see the hypocrisy. They maintained their we surrender to you, but not to ISKCON philosophy until Prabhupada asked them to leave. So then Prabhupada said, when they say they don't like ISKCON and the GBC, they're really saying they don't like to follow my order. That means they don't like my order. That means they don't have faith in my order. That means they don't have faith in me. That means Guru Aparad. To say they have faith in me is just hypocrisy. And it's the third offense to the holy names, disobey the order of the spiritual master. And it's not mentioned here, but later, like a week later or some days later, one devotee on a morning walk said to Prabhupada that, you ordered these devotees to follow the GBC, but obviously they're not doing it. So isn't that the third offense, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master? And Prabhupada said, yes. And the devotee said, but they seem to do basically everything else we do. They chant, they wear the clothes, they wear tilak, they worship deities, they eat prasadam, they look like us. And he said to Prabhupada, so will they go back to Godhead? And Prabhupada shrugged his shoulders. Prabhupada said, maybe after 400 lifetimes. Whereas for the ISKCON devotees, Prabhupada said, we can go back to Godhead at the end of this life. Okay, so now, devotees, we just finished Unit 1, and we're going on now to Unit 2, establishing the relationship with Guru, and this is page 29. And there you have the list, what we're going to be talking about. There are 3 lessons, Guru Padashraya, that's like preliminary to selecting a guru. Then lesson 6, actually selecting a guru. Lesson 7, being initiated and taking the vows of initiation. So let's get into it. On to page 30. Okay, where are we here? Where are we? Yeah, Guru Padashraya. So first of all, first guru is Prabhupada. When you first become a devotee, you are not advised to select who you're going to be initiated by, but you should just take shelter of Srila Prabhupada for the first while. So, in the second half of page 30, there's a few points. First point we already saw. We all have relationships with Prabhupada. And then second point, when people come and they're new, but they're practicing, they want to be devotees, then we should instruct them, take shelter of Prabhupada, and not instruct them to choose, a guru from the current gurus initially. So they must focus their attention on Prabhupada as founder Acharya and their preeminent Siksha Guru. And now this is now when they've come to the point of deciding who their Diksha Guru may be, but they're not initiated. So after chanting the pranam mantra of their Diksha Guru, they should at least chant the first of Prabhupada's pranam mantras while offering obeisances, like when they enter the temple and things like that. So, okay, on to page 31. And, it's a good presentation. Taking shelter of the Diksha and Siksha Gurus, because, as we mentioned, Pad Ashraya, Pada means feet, Ashraya means taking shelter. So Guru Pad Ashraya, taking shelter of the lotus feet of a guru, and Prabhupada Ashraya, taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada. So you can see the little diagram there. Particularly before initiation, and after initiation too, but here we're in the earlier stage. Devotees can take shelter from three sources: Prabhupada, and then after some time, Siksha Gurus, and they can choose who can be their Diksha Guru. And Prabhupada, you see this first quote here, Siksha Guru not speaking something against the teachings of the Diksha Guru. This is important. Sometimes a Diksha Guru is not present always. Therefore, one can take learning from an advanced devotee. That is called the Siksha Guru. Siksha Guru doesn't mean he's speaking something against the teachings of the Diksha Guru. Then he is not a Siksha Guru. He's a rascal. Okay. Right. So what's being emphasized here? There is quite a bit of emphasis on this page on Siksha Gurus. Yeah. There are various sources of mercy which help us in our Krishna consciousness. So they are Krishna, the Chaitya Guru, Prabhupada, the whole Parampara, Diksha Guru, Siksha Gurus, the holy names, scripture, the 9 processes of devotional service. An interesting quote from the GBC body. It can happen that the local temple president or local yatra authorities, because they're giving instructions, they may be giving instructions to you every day if you're living in a temple, or regularly if you're in the congregation. So it often happens that the temple authorities, or one of them or two, like the president, becomes the main Siksha Guru for a devotee. But otherwise, Prabhupada is, at the bottom of page 31, preeminent Siksha Guru for all of us. Right, so now on to selecting a guru. How are you going to select a guru? What are the qualifications to look out for? And how do you go about it? Okay, so what are the qualifications? Prabhupada addresses this fairly briefly on the next page. What is it, 33? First of all, he quotes the first verse of Upadeshamrita, or we actually know it as Nectar of Instruction, that's what we call it. That a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. There you've got a qualification, or a group of qualifications. And then the second one is 2 qualifications. A famous verse which Prabhupada quotes, on a number of occasions. 2 qualifications. You must have heard the Vedic knowledge through the disciplic succession. That's 1. That's quoted from Prabhupada, Teachings of Lord Kapila. Must have heard the Vedic knowledge through the disciplic succession, and must be established in service to the Supreme Lord. And then, interesting little point, doesn't have to be like some big shastric scholar who can just quote left, right, and center on anything. I mean, it's not a problem if he is, but he doesn't have to be. But he must have heard from the proper authority, and, well, it's not mentioned there, but repeat. Yeah. And on to page 34, and here we get really, really practical and down to earth about it. Here we see 4 stages. At least this is what's being presented. I mean, it's a little, anyway, we'll go through it. So there's a 1-year preparatory period. It could be 6 months. But during that preparatory period, Prabhupada Ashraya, you take shelter of Prabhupada. And, going down into the box itself there, it says 1-year preparatory period. So there, you haven't chosen a guru. But you're engaging in devotional service, following the regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds, following the morning program if you're temple resident, having a morning program at home if you're a congregational devotee, plus you're in the stage of Prabhupada Ashraya. Yeah. These 2 are combined. It's not like, first of all, you do what we just read, the 1-year preparatory period, then you go into Prabhupada Ashraya, and then you go into Diksha and Siksha Guru Padashraya. These first 2 are 1, and Diksha and Siksha Guru Padashraya, they are the second. And as you see here, it says, not necessarily 1 year. I mean, this sort of thing varies from yatra to yatra or country to country. It really does. Yeah, it really does. So you'd have to check out how they do it in your area. But according to ISKCON law, it's possible that after a minimum of 6 months of Prabhupada Ashraya and, serving as we just read a minute or 2 ago, then you're allowed, like officially allowed to select an ISKCON authorized Diksha Guru, probably from amongst those who you're already getting instruction from. And as we say, note that 6 months is the minimum period. And you can take longer. Yeah. And you got to use your intelligence, and you got to develop some understanding of what should I be looking for in a person who I could accept as a guru, as an initiating guru particularly. Then when you've made a choice, you should notify the local ISKCON authorities. You have to take an exam, which is, the end of what we're doing right now in a few days or in a little while after we finish this course. Yeah. So then you get your recommendation letter, and then the guru's informed, and then the guru accepts, all right, I'm prepared to give you initiation, and then you can worship your guru, chant his pranam mantra. I mean, this is how, strictly speaking, it's meant to be done. But in the meantime, continue taking instruction if you've got a Siksha Guru or Siksha Gurus. And the last little point there, Krishna, if you change your mind about who you want to be initiated by, it's one of these things. It's not that it doesn't happen. It happens, but it's very rare. It really is very rare. Now, by very rare, I would say, I don't think it happens more than in 1 in 100 cases. It may be 1 in a few hundred. So it happens, but it's very rare. But it's possible. If somehow or other you become dissatisfied, or you feel that you'd be better off being initiated by another ISKCON guru, and I mean, it's a serious decision to make. So it's not just like, hey, yeah, maybe I should be initiated by another. It's a very serious thing. So, but if it happens that you really become convinced that actually it would be better for me, then you inform the guru and the local authorities, or both gurus, the one you now don't want to be initiated by, and the one you now do want to be, and local authorities. Yeah, okay. So then now Harinam initiation, first initiation. So usually after choosing the Diksha Guru, and again, it depends on where you're living. But according to ISKCON law, it's meant to be not less than 6 months after being accepted as an aspiring disciple. At least 6 months. I mean, I think in South Africa it's a year. After being accepted, you get your letter of recommendation, the guru says, yes, I will initiate you. Then you have to wait for at least 6 months. It depends on where. South Africa, I think it's a year. And the guru may decide that you must wait longer. The guru may even decide he doesn't want to initiate you. And that's very rare, but it happens. And then Siksha Gurus, that can all carry on. So, right, now some further things about qualifications of a bona fide guru. First one is Caitanya Charitamrita again. It's Sanatana Goswami appreciating Haridas Thakur. And in simple terms, it's that your achar, your personal activities, and your prachar, your preaching, they're both just first class. They're first class. So therefore, you're the spiritual master of the entire world. Yeah. So when you're considering who can be your initiating spiritual master, these are two considerations you must look for. What is the personal behavior, and what is the preaching of the potential spiritual master? Then next one, from any ashram. This is Lord Caitanya here. Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi. If you can be a Brahmin, can be a sannyasi. Sudra Kainenoi. It could be a Sudra. But Ye Krishna Tattva Veta, say Guru Hoy. Anyone who understands the science of Krishna can become a guru. And then, well, we read earlier today, Prabhupada said he wanted all of his disciples to become gurus. Here, this is now Prabhupada referring to a verse. Well, he's referring to the same verse, actually. Kiba vibra kiba nyasi. Yeah. Every one of you should become a spiritual master. Why one or two? Every one of you. And then he says, someone may think, oh, spiritual master is a very difficult job. Prabhupada says, no, not a difficult job. Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, Amara Agyaya, just carry out my order, that's all. Then you become spiritual master. So Lord Chaitanya's order, and then Prabhupada's order. Yeah. Everyone can become a spiritual master by superior instruction. Yeah. And Prabhupada says that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta ordered him to preach. And Prabhupada, it's an interesting point, it's a subtlety, but, just consider this. It is not that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta told Prabhupada, become a guru, meaning initiate people. He definitely told him, you must preach. Yeah. So, Prabhupada is saying, effectively, that this order, preach, was effectively the order, be a guru, which includes initiating. Yeah. And Prabhupada, such an amazing devotee, says, it's not that I'm very much qualified. The only qualification is I've tried to execute the order of the superior authority. That's all. This is the secret of success. So now, selection of guru. This is now page 36. We already, we've seen a number of things about what to look for when you want to choose a guru. Here's some things. Anyway, here's some other considerations. Don't accept a guru out of fanaticism. Sometimes you get devotees. Sometimes it's been a big thing in the past that there's a group of devotees, they're initiated by a particular guru, and they meet you, you meet them, and now you're associating with them a bit, but now they start pushing you. You selected a guru yet? No. Well, you can accept our guru, he's really good. This is called canvassing, and it's a big no-no. People have to make their own decisions based on the considerations we were just discussing. And Prabhupada mentions there, it's sort of a perspective on the idea of waiting for some time. Sanatana Goswami Hari Bhakti Vilas says, spiritual master and disciple should meet together at least for a year so they can both decide, is this the person I can accept as my guru? Or the guru can decide, is this a person I want to accept as a disciple? Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean they have like a meeting, they sit down and have a meeting. But they should associate, there should be some contact. And, just an interesting little point is that an argument can be made and is made sometimes for accepting as guru, Diksha guru, someone who you're going to be able to get association with. It is not essential. But, it's something to consider. Because, if you accept someone as Diksha Guru, But if, for example, you are never going to see the person personally, it may not be so helpful for your relationship and getting input from him. So anyway, it's just an interesting little point on the side. But, I have definitely seen devotees in South Africa who got initiated by a guru who lives in America and more or less never leaves America. So they might have personal association every 5 years or even 10 or maybe never. But still they're good devotees and they're doing nicely. So then one must hear him at least for a year. Well, that is the same sort of point. And, don't bring upon yourself the calamity of having to reject your spiritual master. Actual rejection of someone who you have accepted as spiritual master only would happen in the very unlikely event that the spiritual master gets deviated from Krishna consciousness. Which, it can happen. It has happened. But it's extremely rare. Therefore, in ISKCON, we have, there's a process for devotees to become gurus. And they have to prove themselves, at least to some reasonable degree, that they have the qualification for being guru. Otherwise, if they don't have the qualifications, if they're not stable enough in their sadhana and just within themselves personally, if they're not knowledgeable enough, not that they have to be big scholars, as I mentioned, but they have to be at least reasonably knowledgeable. Yeah. So we have a system for, you could say guru approval. Sometimes devotees don't like to use the word approval, but it's something like that. And you shouldn't accept a spiritual master in terms of social conventions would normally be hereditary. Is the person born in a Brahmin family? And you've got to use your brains to make your own decision. So, qualifications, page 37, selecting a guru. Well, these are additional quotes, okay. And an interesting point, we should select someone who's Uttama Adhikari. Prabhupada here, though, in this from Nectar of Instruction, verse 5, purport, Prabhupada explains what we should look for if someone is this person an Uttama Adhikari or not, because, Srimati Radharani is an Uttama Adhikari. And we are not, and we are not going to be on her level. You don't have to be on her level to be accepted as an Uttama Adhikari. So let's just have a look at what is said here. That when a person realizes himself to be an eternal servitor of Krishna, it means fully engaged in Krishna consciousness and convinced, he loses interest in everything but Krishna's service, always thinking of Krishna, devising means by which to spread the holy name of Krishna. He understands his only business is to spread Krishna consciousness. Such a person is to be recognized as an Uttama Adhikari. His association should be immediately accepted. Indeed, the advanced Uttama Adhikari Vaishnav devotee should be accepted as a spiritual master. So these, when we talk about what's an Uttama Adhikari, particularly in this context, it would be good if I selected an Uttama Adhikari to be a guru. So I want to do that. So look for these qualifications. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says Uttamadhikari can convert many people to becoming devotees. And Prabhupada makes the point, it's from the same purport, that a Kanishta Adhikari or Madhyam Adhikari can accept disciples, but they're not going to advance very well, under his insufficient guidance. Therefore, we should be careful. We should definitely try our best to be initiated by an Uttamadhikari. And the last one on page 37, it's a good one. You don't require large definition what is guru. So Vedic knowledge gives you indication that tad vijnanartam. If you want to know the science of spiritual life, you must approach guru. And who is guru? Guru means who is the faithful servant of God. Very simple. Like Prabhupada, I think Prabhupada told John Lennon. John Lennon asked Prabhupada, how can I recognize a guru? And Prabhupada answered, whoever is most addicted to Krishna. Yeah, because John Lennon was addicted to drugs, so it's very clever. But, it's a very good point. All right, so let's see. Initiation vows, lesson 7. Here you see there, the first thing is qualities of a disciple, free from false prestige, not consider himself the doer, not be envious of others, be active, never lazy, give up sense of proprietorship, and so on and so forth. These are qualities of a disciple. Who could be initiated and should be the qualities of someone who is initiated. Then they have to be able to follow the initiation vows. There they are. You all know what they are. By not eating meat, you cultivate mercy, daya. Through not taking intoxication, you cultivate tapa, austerity. Through not engaging in illicit sex, you cultivate cleanliness. Through being truthful, through not gambling, you cultivate truthfulness. And Prabhupada, to make the point that we got to take this seriously, Prabhupada gives us the next quote at the end, the bottom of page 38. Not difficult to follow the regulative principles. These things can be stopped if you're serious. But otherwise, what he means is, you don't want to follow them, make a farce, make it just like a joke, and you just do whatever you like. And then I can't protect you. Not possible. So if you're serious, you have to follow these rules and regulations, then take it initiation. And just don't make it a farce like a joke. And then also very important one, page 39, the top one. My advice is always chant 16 rounds minimum and follow the 4 regulative principles. All of my disciples must agree on this point. Otherwise, they are not my disciples. My disciples must follow these principles, living either in heaven or hell. Okay, coming to the end of my section. Next point, tapasya, for forcing you to make advancement. That these promises to follow the regulative principles, chant 16 rounds. Yes, that now I've promised my spiritual master this. I must obey him. Otherwise, I can't call myself his disciple. That's your austerity for making progress. You must chant your rounds and avoid these 4 basic things. And if you say no, at some point, even later on, that if you defy, you will not follow those standards, then, the point here is spiritual master may have to take birth again to deliver the disciple who didn't make it. Therefore, every disciple should be careful not to make offenses. Otherwise, the spiritual master has to take birth again. That's an offense. So the number one offense is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So we have to strictly follow the instructions at the time of initiation. But if we deliberately defy them, then Prabhupada says you disconnect the relationship with the spiritual master. And then you can hardly expect the assistance of the spiritual master, life after life. How's that? That's pretty powerful, isn't it? Some additional quotes. If you pour water on a fire, it will not light, or it'll go out. Yeah, so this means that if you stop following the regulative principles, then just like a man is taking medicine at the same time doing all nonsense, his disease will not be cured. And then next quote, Lord Caitanya accepts all kinds of sinful people, just even the most shocking people, on one condition. They, like Jagai and Madai, they gave up their sinful habits. That's what you got to do. Yeah. If someone falls down, then they don't have to undergo any ritualistic processes for purification. They just have to chant Hare Krishna. And then the last one at the bottom of page 40, if you take the vows at the time of initiation, but then you break the vows, so you accept a guru by taking the vows, being initiated, then you disobey him. What's your position? You're not even a guru. You're not even a gentleman. You promise before the guru, before Krishna, before the fire, I'll obey your order. But then you don't do it. So Prabhupada says, then you're not even a gentleman. What to speak about a devotee? Okay, devotees. I will finish my part here, and tomorrow we'll carry on with, Unit 3. I know there are 4 units, we've only done 2. There's still 2 more, and we have less time tomorrow, particularly. And then, altogether less time tomorrow and Tuesday. But there is less really to discuss, so don't worry. So there you go, devotees. Bhakti Rasa Devi Dasi, our organizer, has said we can have now some 15 minutes if anyone's got a question. If you've got a question or comment or whatever, put your hand up.
Their questions also came through on the chat, so I have that for you as well. I'll read them out. Okay.
How many in the chat?
There's 3 questions in the chat.
Let's start with them. They came first, right? And then we'll go on to Jean.
Okay, I'll read it out to you. So the first question, Gurudev, is what is the difference between an acharya and spiritual master or guru?
Okay. That's the question, yeah?
That's the first one. The second one
Okay,
is...
wait. Let's just
Okay, we'll do that
deal
one
with
first.
that, yeah. So, sometime, spiritual master and guru, they're just synonyms. It's simple as that. Just like 6 and half a dozen, they're just synonyms. There's absolutely no difference. So similarly, spiritual master and guru just happens to be the same thing in a different language, although, it's also accepted in English now. But acharya can mean the same, but more often it's used to refer to the head of an institution. Like Prabhupada was founder acharya. He was the head, he is the head of the institution. He's not just one of the gurus, like in ISKCON. I said yesterday, we got maybe 100 gurus or something. They're all spiritual masters, they're all gurus. I know many of them, and they're really good devotees, my gosh. But we, in our practice, we don't use the term acharya for them, generally, because it's, generally used to refer to the head of an institution. Yeah. Okay, what's next?
Okay, the next question is, does following Srila Prabhupada and taking vows at initiation also mean not eating anything besides Krishna prasadam? And is the temple president also an instructing Shiksha guru?
Okay. Yeah. So, when you feel not necessarily, or not just when you become initiated, but when you feel, I want to get into Krishna consciousness, I really want to get into it, then you really must only eat prasadam. Now, because if you eat food, even like an apple or a banana, which is, it's pure vegetarian, it's just totally, completely vegetarian. But when it's not offered to Krishna, then in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, verse 13, if you're not familiar with this verse, make a note of it. Chapter 3, verse 13, Lord Krishna says, if you eat food which is not offered, then you're eating sin. So when you decide, I am going to be a devotee, that means you got to eat only prasad. So, back to your apple or your banana, if, like what we used to do, we would go out all day distributing books. And we didn't want to waste time to come back to the temple, although the lunch was there in the temple. We would stay out. We would buy, an apple or a banana or something like that and offer it. There are ways of doing simple offerings that take, like not even 1 or maybe 2 minutes. Anyone can do, even practically a child can do. And then you're eating prasadam. Yeah. So, it's best, if somehow you have no alternative but eat in a restaurant, if you're sure it's no onions and no garlic, etc., you could possibly offer what the restaurant's serving you, but that's down the scale. You're almost off the scale, actually. So best for initiated devotee or initiated, but also devotees who are just trying to take things seriously and be a devotee. It's best not to eat in restaurants. I mean, unless they're owned by devotees. I mean, there are many restaurants around the world owned by devotees, and then it's a different thing. But otherwise, we should only eat food which one way or the other has been offered to the Lord. Okay?
Okay, and the next part of that question, Gurudev, was, is the temple president also an instructing Shiksha Guru?
You know, not necessarily. It's not that everybody, I mean, it's very likely that the temple president, particularly if you reside in the temple, or if you're there very regularly, like a few days a week, it's very likely the temple president will give you some instructions. I mean, and not just clean the pots or, to do something, some service, but some instruction like, you must chant better, or you should read this book, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. Spiritual instruction. Now, if someone is just giving you, like, occasionally some sort of spiritual instruction, that is not really what we mean by Siksha Guru. What we mean by Siksha Guru is someone who is regularly giving you spiritual instruction which is really valuable for you. Because this is Guru. Otherwise, someone who's just giving good advice and encouragement, that's nice, that's great. But it's not necessarily to the point. I mean, in other words, if someone just gives you one instruction in your life, and they never give you a second one, it's not a Siksha Guru. It's not really a Siksha Guru. Maybe it's Vartma Pradarshika. That's possible. Sort of indicating something, not as specific and focused, like really instructing you. You got to live like this and don't live like that on a regular basis. So the temple president might do that. If he does, or she, then that person is a Siksha Guru. Otherwise, what they are, the person is an authority in Krishna consciousness, and you are meant to do what they say. I mean, if they tell you, please help to cut the vegetables, you should ideally help cut the vegetables. It's like a managerial instruction, and not exactly like spiritual guidance or advice. Okay?
Okay, so this is the last question online, and then after that we'll move to Jean Mataji and Kadruta Mataji.
Okay.
Okay, the last question that came through the chat was, Srimati Radharani is part of Lord Krishna's pleasure potency. Lord Balaram is his first expansion. How is it that the masculine energy of Krishna is referred to as Lord Balaram or Lord Nityananda, and the female energy is referred to Srimati Radharani and not as Lord or Goddess? Does Srimati Radharani have another connotation besides a title of respect for a female?
Oh, I see, the title. Well, we use Srimati, or sometimes Shri, which basically means, a divine Srimati. We also use Srimate in the masculine form. But Srimati is basically the same. It's like goddess. Yeah. And Shri, yeah. So they're the female forms. And, Srimati and Shri, they are adopted, English terms. I'm sure if you look in the Oxford Dictionary, Srimati will be there.
All right, and then we move on to, we've got 2 hands raised. So Jean Mataji, you first.
And also,
Hare Krishna.
sorry, Jane, just a sec. Devi literally means goddess. Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting point. There is, Subhadra. We hear of Lord Jagannath, Lord Balaram, Lady Subhadra. That's an English, in English you have lords and ladies. I mean, English. In England, specifically, lords and ladies, the nobility. So sometimes, like Subhadra, more often than not, I think, or at least often, we talk about Lady Subhadra. And it's in that sense, it's a female form, not like she's a female, so she's a lady, but it's the female equivalent of the term Lord. Okay, Jean. Hare Krishna, Jean.
Hare Krishna, Bhakti Caitanya Swami. I have a question with regards to initiation. If one is ready to be initiated or has been accepted for initiation, but there's aspiring guru passes away before the initiation, how do they still get initiated, and or are they initiated by default?
No. Okay.
And then if one has been accepted to be initiated, but the disciple passes away before initiation, are they still considered initiated?
No. Okay, good questions. Yeah, if the spiritual master passes away, like Kadamakanana Maharaj, and there have been others too, then one would keep that, like in this case, Kadamakanana Maharaj, let's say, as a Siksha Guru. Maybe the main Guru, and then after some time, one should be initiated by another Guru. Because...
Okay, I understand.
You get the idea. Because being initiated is important.
Yes,
yes,
of course.
Right.
So we would take the guru that we were aspiring for. We would take him, if he passes away, we would take him as the Siksha Guru.
Correct. Yeah. And, just a sec, and I was going to say that, there are definitely cases. There are definitely, and I have given second initiation to some disciples of Bhakti Churu Maharaj. I've personally done that since he passed away. And generally, they consider him to be their main guru. And I see it in how they deal with me and, their attitudes. And it's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Then, if the disciple passes away before initiation, then no, they're not initiated. And
so they would take it up in the next lifetime.
Generally, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much for answering the questions, Bhakti Caitanya Maharaj.
Anytime. Kudruta.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. I have one question about Kantimala. How many circles is allowed for a devotee who is not initiated to pulse around his throat? And what's the meaning of this? Is that through this throat is not passing meat, garlic, onion, mushrooms?
Sorry, what was the very last little thing about onions and?
The onion. garlic and onion is
What
not allowed
about
to
them?
pass through. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, let me just deal with the first part, which I caught. The very last part I didn't quite catch. The number. If a person is not initiated, the practice, there is no law or rule or, you must do this or you must not do that. But the general practice is once or twice around the neck. And when one is initiated, the more or less rule is either at least three. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used 5. But the rule is at least 3, and most devotees use 3. I got these big neck beads, look at them. Wow, they're really big. When I was traveling a lot and going to Muslim countries, I would wear these little beads so I can cover them really easily. So the people, particularly like, in the airports, the immigration people don't see. Because in some places, like particularly Qatar, Doha, if they see you've got neck beads, they won't let you into the country. They might even arrest you, but at least they won't let you into the country, and you'll just be stuck on the next flight out. So I used to have these tiny little beads, so really small, 3 strings. But now I'm not visiting those places, at least for the time being. So I got these big beads. Look at this. Just proves I must be a devotee or something like that. But what was the last part? I think there was another part, Kadruta.
Yes, Gurudev. About the significance of Kantimala is that through this throat is never passing meat or garlic or onion.
Not really. A devotee certainly should not, obviously, eat meat or onions or garlic, obviously. But it doesn't mean that that person is not, because sometimes, particularly, sometimes when Prabhupada traveled by train, or in certain situations, Prabhupada, there were occasions when Prabhupada ate something which had onions in it. There were occasions. By mistake, somehow or other, the arrangements were not made properly. But it's not that wearing the neck beads means that you're not. Although when you're wearing neck beads, you definitely should not. How's that? Is that okay?
Thank you, Gurudev. I have another question about the beads for chant. These are offered by Guru in the moment of initiation. If a devotee has these beads from another devotee or even from a shop, is okay?
You mean if someone gave them to you, or you just bought them from a shop?
Not about me. I speak generally. I have my husband and he was initiated.
See, at the time of initiation, or just before, the devotees who are going to be initiated, they generally supply their own beads, new beads. And the Guru chants on them. And then when the initiation actually happens, which would normally be a few days later, than when the aspiring disciple handed over the new beads. Then the spiritual master passes them over to the devotee. But they're new beads, that they should not have been chanted on by anyone other than, the spiritual master chants on them and then hands them over. Is that clear, Kadruta?
Yes, dear Gurudev. Thank you very much. Dantava pranams. Haribol.
Haribol.